Hello. Now that we know what your e-commerce value will be, or at least the criteria by which a valuation will be established by a buyer, let's take a look and come back to what should your exit goal be and walk through how your goal now will change based on the growth rate that you can generate for your particular business. The first thing I like to do is to set your valuation in terms of the number of products that you're planning on releasing. And I like to do it this way because it helps you really break down a big goal into a series of smaller goals. For example, who here would like to sell a business for $500,000? Well, hopefully if you're listening to this video, you absolutely would. $500,000 is a heck of a lot of money in any household. And that sounds like, wow, that might be a really unattainable goal. But if we break it down in terms of number of successful products, let's take a look at that's actually quite attainable. In product terms, if you can have 7 successful products selling 20 units a day at an average price of $20 with that 20% margin that I mentioned, lo and behold, look what happens. You take the 7 successful products times the 20 units per day, that's 140 units per day. You multiply that times $20 per unit, that means you're selling $2,800 per day. You take that times 20% margin, that means you're making $560 of profit per day. You take 30 days in a month, and that means you're making $16,800 of profit per month. You multiply that times 12, and lo and behold, you're making a little over $200,000 of annual profit. And using that concept of the multiple that we mentioned before, you take a 2.5 multiple, which is a very conservative multiple, but reasonable for this size business, and you've got a $500,000 sales price. You simply have created, by releasing 7 successful products in whatever time frame it takes. Maybe you do 3 a year that are successful, you lose a couple and it takes you 3 years. But when you have 7 products doing this, you have a $500,000 business. Now, you may decide to continue to run that business and make $200,000 a year, or using the concept of the next step, you may decide to say, you know what, it's time to cash this one out and make sure that I start putting money into what I call your me account, which is your personal bank account, and not leave everything in the business. We can cover that in a later set of training videos for you. However, here's the core point. If I said to you, you need to sell a business for $500,000, you'd go, oh my gosh, I don't know that I can do that. If I said over the next 3 years, do you think that you can get 7 products out there that make 20 sales a day on Amazon at a net price of $20? You'd probably go, yeah, that seems doable. Who here would like to implement what I call the 20-20-20-20 plan? That's worth $1.7 million. 20 successful products over 3 years, which probably means you might need to launch 30 or 35, each of them selling 20 units a day, selling price $20, 20% margin. Let's take a look at it. 20 products times 20 units a day, margin. Let's take a look at it. 20 products times 20 units a day, 400 units a day, times $20 per product is $8,000 per day, times a 20% profit margin is $1,600 of profit per day, times 30 days in the month is $48,000 of profit per month, times 12 months is $576,000 of annual profit, times a 3 multiple is $1.728 million. You would have a business valued at $1.7 million pre-tax if you could achieve the 20-20-20-20 vision. Now, when we think about selling a business for $1.7 million, you go, oh my gosh, I can't imagine that. When you think about having 20 products and getting those successfully launched over 3 years, it won't be 10 a year your first year, but it might be 3 to 4 your first year, or 2 or 3 even, and then look to go and double and grow the business as you get more capabilities. Here's the key point. The valuation of your company and the growth of your company is dependent on you continually launching successful products. So from a core competency standpoint of what you need to build, you need to not rest on your laurels and get 2 great products out there and then not release anymore. You have to think about continually investing in the growth of your business if you want to have a business that's valuable. I'd like to use another real story that I had happen to me at a conference because I think it puts the next step number concept into action. Scott, someone came up to me. I'd like to take $20,000 that I have right now that I've saved up and build a business that I could sell for $200,000 after tax. But I just got done listening to your presentation and I'm wondering, is that a big enough goal? And here was my answer back to them. I said, Bill, do you know of a broker that you could take that $20,000 and in 2 years, because that's how long that he said he thought it would take for him to do that, that could generate $200,000? That's a 10x return in 2 years. I said, if you have one, please let me know who it is. I think that's a fantastic goal. A lot of times when you get into an industry, you'll be encouraged to always think bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you might have what I call the hype and disillusionment complex, where you get hyped up one day, then it's a struggle, you get disillusioned the next day. So if you're just starting out on your journey and you have a certain amount of money that you can spend, there is a business that you could do to sell for $200,000. And let's take a look at it. 4 successful products, just 4 products, just 4, 20 units a day is 800 units a day, times $20 is $1,600 in sales per day. That's actually 80 units per day. I'll correct the video in real time here, but it's still $1,600 in sales per day. Times a 20% profit margin is $320 of profit per day, and that's accurate. Times 30 days in a month is $9,600 of profit per month. Times 12 months is $115,200 of annual profit that you've got in this business, times a 2x multiple, because the smaller the business, the smaller the multiple, is something that's worth $230,000. And now that might not quite be $200,000 after tax, but as you can see, it's very close to it, and you will have built up some profit along the way that you probably have a business that's close to $200,000 after tax if you can even get 4 successful products out there doing it. So here's the action item. Translate your exit goal that we initially came up with before into the number of successful products that you need to achieve in order to reach that goal. And really important, don't let anybody else drive what your goal should be. It can't be too big and it can't be too small because it's your goal. Now, always good to get input from other people, but make sure that you're owning your next step goal for this particular business. We're on to the final step, which is what should I do today in order to plan for an exit tomorrow? Now, the answer is go through the entire Freedom Ticket module, go through the entire program. There's lots of different things that you need to do. So I'm not going to focus on the operational things. I'm going to key you in on a few key, what we call corporate development or building blocks that you need in order to build a company to be able to exit it tomorrow. Most of them come in the accounting or the legal area, and I call it setting up your company right today for an exit tomorrow. On the accounting side, the first thing you need to do is you need to have a separate bank account just for your Amazon e-commerce business. Relating to that, on a legal side, you need to have a separate legal entity, such as a limited liability corporation or an LLC, and have a separate Seller Central account for each what I refer to as brand in your business. So if you want to start up a pets brand and you also want to tackle having an automotive brand, each one of those should have a separate bank account, legal entity, and Seller Central account. So they're seen as a separate business. And the reason is because very likely the buyer of your automotive brand might be different than the buyer of your pets brand. So make sure that you do this. You also want to set up a legal entity so that you get rid of any personal liability from product liability or any of those types of things. The next thing you need to do is on the accounting side, you simply have to have a good bookkeeper who understands e-commerce. Now, when you just get started, you might not want to invest in that type of dollar expense before you've released your first product. I understand that. But as you start to scale the business, you want to make sure that you have somebody that understands e-commerce and they can fill out your books on what's called an accrual basis. On the legal side of things, it's absolutely critical, as you're hearing in the Freedom Ticket program, that you have your trademarks and your intellectual property and your brand registry and all of these things clearly owned. I always say you need to make sure that you have what's called a clean company, and certainly from an intellectual property standpoint, you need to focus on that. Finally, from an accounting perspective, you need to have what's called accrual accounting, not cash accounting, and you need to have a solid forecast of where you're going in order to plan your inventory. If you're not familiar with the differences between accrual accounting and cash accounting, don't worry about it, but the simple way to describe it is that a cash basis, you record your expenses when you pay your bills, but on an accrual basis, you record your expenses that match when you sell your products. So check out online or go to a bookkeeper that understands it or talk in the mastermind groups or all of the different resources that you have. But eventually understand how to generate your profitability on an accrual basis. Then focus on making sure that you're forecasting your growth appropriately. And finally, on the legal side, I call this doing your due diligence from day one. Here's what I mean. When you go to exit your company, the easiest analogy that I can use is it's like graduation day from high school. The only difference is before they hand you your diploma, you have to look at mom and dad and tell them all of the things that you did wrong in high school. And for many of you, that might not be a very fun day. The important point of due diligence is to recognize that same concept applies for your business. Recognize that same concept applies for your business. Every mistake that you make, every lack of clean trademark that you have, every potential black hat tactic that you think that you can get away with will eventually need to be disclosed to a buyer before you cut the biggest check of your career, possibly, certainly in this business, using that lifetime effective multiple that more than 50% will likely come from when you sell. The reason I mention that is the process that does that and uncovers all of those things in your business is called the due diligence process. Okay? Think of your business from day one as knowing that you're going to go through due diligence, and you'll organize things much better. For example, you'll make sure to get a legal entity right away. The second thing is you'll make sure to register your and trademark your brand name or your company name. You'll start to think about tactics on Amazon and have an acceptable level of risk where you can still grow your company but not do things that might risk getting your account shut down, and a whole host of other items. So these are the core things to focus on in addition to the other things operationally that will help you exit your company tomorrow. And then the last thing I want to leave you with is what I call the 5-for-1 principle. There's a huge amount of things that you can do to make a company successful. But from a valuation perspective, this is one that I often find that people aren't thinking of. And here's how it works. It's effectively turning $1 into $5. We'll use Willie's Wines as an example. Willie's Wines is making $500,000 a year in profit. They got $2.5 million in revenue, and as you remembered, we have that 20% profit, and they're making $500,000. However, the valuation of that company is valued at a 4x multiple, so the sales price of the company, the exit price if Willie was to sell, would be $2 million. Willie figures out a way to make $10,000 more profit by negotiating with his or her suppliers out there to get a little bit more efficient. Most people go, great, you picked up $10,000. But the 5-for-1 principle shows that that's not true. You get the $10,000 you put in your pocket, but when you take that $510,000 and you look at the multiple on that, the 4x multiple, you just increase the value of the company by $40,000, and you got the $10,000, so you increase $50,000 going into your pocket, and that's the 5-for-1 principle. A $10,000 profitability change created $50,000 worth of additional value. Now, from a disclaimer standpoint, I can't guarantee that you're going to get a 4x multiple, but the principle is what we're talking about. And whether it's a 3x or a 4x or a 5x, you get the multiple and the cash. So how does that cause you to think about your business? Here's the way that I like to make an analogy. If every day you can just wake up and running a lifestyle business, it's very easy for you to go, oh, you know what? It's only $30 a month for this software tool, or it's only $50 a month for this tool, or you know what? I'm going to ship by air because even though it's a little bit more expensive, it's not that big of a deal. When you really get excited about the 5-for-1 principle, you'll realize that every dollar is worth $5. So that $40 a month software program times 12 months is close to $500 a year. That $500 a year times 5 is $2,500 onto your sales price. So if I said to you, oh, just go, sign up for this tool, and if you don't use it for, a year, no big deal, it's only $40 a month, that could be the mindset you have. But the 5-for-1 says, I'm not going to cost myself $2,500 in sales price just by not watching the store and making sure that I'm maximizing profitability. Now, you don't want to apply this so stringently that you restrict your growth, but most Amazon and e-commerce businesses, you will make mistakes, so I'm also not trying to say that, but it's very easy for you as you're growing to lose track of the 5-for-1 principle and cost yourself in your valuation. We're right now at the end of the module, and I want to walk through the key action items for you to prepare and sell from day one. Number 1, change your mindset to knowing that you can do it and that 50% or more of the money you ever take out of this business is going to come when you do. Next, more of the money you ever take out of this business is going to come when you do. Next, set aside an hour a week in positive time mindset to strategically go through this module and plan your exit. First, start with your initial owner exit goal and use the no work number and the next step number to help guide you. Then make sure your business goals and the market that you're in align with your exit goals. Know your numbers on one page so that you know exactly what the valuation of your business is at all points in time, even if it's just a simple spreadsheet that you build. Then, focus on tracking your numbers against what makes a company valuable: the 20% margin, the more than 20% growth, the diversification. And don't worry if those numbers are not good initially. Next, set your exit goal in terms of the number of successful products you are planning to release over time. Set up your company correctly with a separate entity, bank account, and Amazon Seller Central account for each one of your brands. Implement accrual accounting with monthly inventory reconciliation so that you're looking at your numbers the way a buyer will, not on a cash basis, but on an accrual basis. Maintain a monthly forecast of where you're growing and a budget. Again, simple is fine, but you're going to need to project your inventory ordering. And how do you project of how much of your inventory should you order unless you're projecting what your sales are? And finally, set your future valuation goal if you can hit your projections over the next 3, 6, 12, or 24 months. You got an hour a week and you now have a roadmap of what you can do to plan your exit from day one. It's time to wrap up this part of the program with a couple of key mindset shifts for you to make. Number 1, as the great one Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Take your shot not just to start an Amazon business, but to build up an Amazon business worth selling and exit for a payday bigger than what you may have ever had in your life. And second, ice skate to where the puck is going to be and not to where it has been. Recognize that you need to start skating now toward your exit and start thinking about what's going to make you valuable and get you that biggest payday. We've come to the end of the Freedom Ticket 3.0 Planning Your Exit from Day One module. However, you may have some questions or you may want to discuss this in more detail. And if you do have some questions or you may want to discuss this in more detail, and if you do, you can reach out to me at scott@northboundgroup.com or visit northboundgroup.com, and we're happy to answer your questions or walk you through what is obviously, as you can see, a complicated topic in one sense, but it should be the most motivating topic because it's this topic that will get you more money than maybe all of the other topics combined. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the program.